Welcome back to Locker Talk. This week, I want to slow it down a little bit and pull some things together because all week I've been talking about how much the job market has changed. And I think for a lot of people, that change is felt more than it's being understood. And when that's the situation, that's when people start turning inward, right? They start thinking, maybe I'm doing something wrong, maybe I'm behind, maybe I'm not trying hard enough, maybe I'm not qualified. And before we get into it, I just want to say that I don't think that's what's happening for most people. I don't think that it's that you are given the effort, that you're not absolutely qualified for some of these jobs that you're applying for, that you're not doing your best. I think a lot of really smart, capable, experienced mid-career folks are trying to run a job search playbook that just doesn't match the market we're in anymore. I had another creator here on Substack make a comment on one of my notes, basically saying that today, right? That they're hearing from people over 40, especially like, I used to just be able to have a good resume and be qualified, and like that was enough. And that's just not the game that we're in anymore. And when the strategy doesn't fit the market, your search gets a lot heavier. It feels a lot more draining. It feels a lot more confusing. It feels a lot more discouraging. And that starts to mess with your head. So, if that's where you are, this episode really is just me wanting to give you the full picture of what's going on. Because if you can see that, then you can stop blaming yourself for the symptoms that are actually just a strategic symptom of the market, and you can figure out what to do with that. So, I was talking to a job seeker last week. We were having just a fun conversation, and I made a comment, just kind of joking around in the middle of it, that really stuck with me as I was working on content for this week and really what I wanted to talk about. And I said that AI has screwed up the job market so badly that we are back to where we're started. And yeah, that seems like a little crazy, and we both giggled about it, but the it really made sense to both of it and to both of us. And the more I sat with it, the more true it really felt. Because think about what's happened, right? We have more tech, more automation, more AI, more tools that are supposed to make searching the job market, finding a new job easier, faster, more efficient, right? For both us as job seekers and those who are on the hiring side of things. But somehow the path to actually getting hired is looking a lot more human again, not less. And that is, I don't know, like a plot twist. And that really matters because if you don't understand that, then you're going to spend months working really hard in the wrong direction. You're going to have a lot of movement, but very little momentum. And so the core pattern I keep seeing, right? The first thing that's really changed isn't just the technology, it's the volume, right? It is easier than ever to apply at scale. It is easier to spray resumes everywhere. It's easier, more than ever, to stay really busy doing job search work, right? The apply now, the easy apply, the update your resume with AI tools and just apply, 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 apply. But on the other side of all of that, even when you get through the filters of the job seekers and the filters of the employers, it's still a human being who is overwhelmed with all of that volume, right? It's the recruiter, it's the hiring manager, it's the team trying to make a decision while staring at more and more incoming noise that they can realistically process with care. And so when that happens, humans get overwhelmed. And what do? They do what they always do. We reduce risk. We trust what feels familiar. We lean on context. We move faster when somebody credible, someone we trust, says, hey, this person is worth talking to. And when you think about that, that's really a lot of like how we used to do things and actually how we've always done things, right? Like we look to work with those we know, trust, like. And we look to others to validate that for us, right? When I go look at a restaurant, when I go look at a hotel that I'm trying to book, I'm always looking at the Google reviews, right? How many stars do they have? What does that look like? What are people saying, right? We check out Reddit threads. We check out, uh, you know, different places, comments for us to figure out how much trust we can have in a situation because the options are so wide. Hiring is the exact same thing, right? It's a human being getting filtered through a whole bunch of what is supposed to be helpful process and automation and technology, all the way to another human who is now inundated with trying to figure out who we're going to do. And that is a huge part of why the market feels so brutal right now. And it's not hopeless. I see people getting hired every day, but it is a lot noisier. And when the noise gets too loud, trust becomes the filter. And that means a lot of what people were taught to do in a job search still exists, but doesn't carry the same weight anymore. And that's why so many people feel like they're doing everything right and still getting very little back in return. And so the trap that almost everybody falls into, right? When we layer on top of all of that noise and all of that that's happening, we also have to look at what the job search feels like emotionally, because that is a huge aspect of what's going on when you're sitting in the middle of a job search. If your job search already feels a little tender, right? Like discouraging, high stakes. Like, of course, your nervous system is going to be preferring the part of the process that lets you stay a little more private, a little more safe. And it's going to help you do the thing, it's going to want you to do the things that feel a little more comfortable. And the part that lets you stay really private and safe and in your own little bubble stays on a screen. You search, you scroll, you apply, you tweak, you repeat over and over and over again. And I understand why people end up there. Truly, I do. It feels really productive because you are doing something, right? It's like the more I apply, the more jobs should show up. It feels really responsible because it looks like effort. I applied to 50 jobs today. Go me, right? It feels safer because you don't have to risk the real-time awkwardness, rejection or discomfort or any of that that comes with speaking to a human being. But that's also exactly why people get stuck for months, because the parts of the search that are easiest to do on a screen are often the parts least likely to get you hired. It doesn't mean they're useless. Some of them are absolutely a requirement. You have to apply to a job. But it does mean that they are easy to over rely on, right? They're easy to put your energy in that space. And when those things become the center of your search, you can work incredibly hard without getting meaningfully closer to what you want. And that's the trap. And the other thing that all that screen time does is make the human part of search feel even harder. It makes reaching out feeling a lot harder to do. It makes starting conversations feel harder. It makes tolerating vulnerability of needing other human beings feel harder, right? The more time our interactions are on a screen behind, some kind of a buffer between us and the next person, it creates feeling of having to go uphill to get started, to get going, right? Think about when we all went through COVID and how hard it was to engage back into the real world. It felt exciting, but you were also exhausted after a day of being out and about that you wouldn't have normally felt exhausted in before, right? Think about how hard people talk about it is to do online dating, or maybe you've experienced that yourself, right? Building that connection, figuring that out, right? We have a loneliness epidemic, and it is all because of the fact that we are not connecting as human beings the way human beings are wired to connect to each other. And when we don't do it enough, when it's not a practiced active skill, it feels brutal to do it. And so again, we resort back to what feels easiest. And so now people are really caught in this like brutal loop of the screen-based strategy isn't working, but the human-based strategy creates a ton of anxiety and it feels really hard. And so we go back to the screen and we stay stuck in this cycle that is very active, but not moving us forward. And I see it all the time. I've done it myself, like we all have in spaces. And I want to be really clear that this isn't a character flaw. It's not proof that you are lazy or proof that you don't want it badly enough. I hate that one, right? Or it's not proof that you're bad at the job search. I've had so many people come to me and say, I just think I'm bad at searching at jobs. And like, that's not it, right? It just means that we're probably over relying on a part of the process that feels safest while under practicing the part that actually creates traction. And that is just a strategy problem, and strategy problems are absolutely fixable. And like this really showed up for me when I was in a recent conversation in one of the cohorts for my Your Next Role Accelerator program, which is kicking off next week. But I would just walk the group through the three kinds of conversations that I teach people to aim for in a job search. And these are fundamentally the core of what I teach people when it comes to actually getting hired for a job. And those three things are insight, orientation, or connection. And so when you're sitting down for a conversation, you're focused on one of those things. And one of the women in the group jumped in with a question that was, I get asked plenty, and especially by people who are very methodical and very thoughtful and very, want to know all the answers before they get going on something. And she wanted to know how much of each type of conversation she should be having, whether it depended on her network, whether that changed over time, right? I could see her building this out in her head, right? She was trying to plan every single conversation, start to finish, before she had even sent a message. But underneath that question, I could really hear how much pressure she was putting on herself to get it all right before she even made that first move. So I answered her questions. Yes, it changes. Yes, it depends on who you know. Early on, you need more orientation. Later on, more connection. The conversation should follow where you are and what you need to know next. And so as I was explaining all this, she stopped me and she said, and it was one of those moments where like we're on video. So I could see the light bulb go off almost, right? And she was like, okay. Like I get it, right? Like when I was thinking about reaching out to people, especially like people who are in roles or industries or companies, that she respected or she might one day herself want to be in, she really assumed they were thinking like, why are you asking me this? Why didn't you figure this out on your own? What do you actually want from me? Right? Like she automatically was assuming that she was bothering people from the get-go, right? And she would never respond to them. Because that's a story that was running in her head, right? Every message felt extraordinarily awkward before she even sent it, right? Every outreach felt too loaded, too exposed, too easy to get wrong. But in the middle of us talking and kind of having this conversation, answering her questions, she realized in the light bulb moment she had that she'd been making the outreach way more than it needed to be, right? She was making it about the entirety of her job search, right? Like, I have to have a conversation to get a job. She was looking for a favor, an opening, some kind of access. And that is really, really heavy. And in reality, the first ask is much smaller and much more human than that. Help me understand this. Help me get my bearings. Help me see what I can't see from where I'm sitting, right? Teach me something. Tell me something because you know something really great. And the second that clicked, like I could hear it in her voice, I could see it on her face, because now the message wasn't that big, can you get me the job? It was, you've got perspective I'd really trust. You know this world better than I do right now. You could help me orient myself. And that's such a different energy. And honestly, I think that shifts one of the biggest keys for people right now. Not another reminder that you need to go out there and network, that networking matters, that you need to just network more, put yourself out there. But really, I like to call this lowering the cost of entry, lowering the bar so the action becomes possible and easily attainable. This is the same kind of general concept that James Clear uses in Atomic Habits of, I think he calls it his 3-minute rule or 2-minute rule. But when you're trying to get going, make it small, short. What can I get done in 2 minutes, right? What's this easy ask I can have to get the conversation started? And that's what I actually teach instead of like this huge, like, let me find the job, go out there and network, do all these things. It's breaking this down into pieces that are manageable and approachable. And if you're looking for somebody else who's really, really great at networking and has so many great tips, I would suggest following Greg, the Introverted Networker, here on Substack. His stuff is really great and gives you like for the long run of your career how to just keep your networks really active and rich and full. And I would recommend his stuff highly. So side note, side quest there. Go do that. It's one of my recommended things on my Substack. So go check that out. But back to the story. This is why I don't teach the human side of the search as just vague advice, as a side quest, as a thing that you should do on top of other things. I teach it as the process. It isn't go network, just out there in this vague, intimidating strategy. Because if you try that and if you try to just power through and push out there in the world, you're going to end up really quickly right back where you started, right? Overwhelmed, not making any traction. And so, at a really high level, right, that connection-based process that I teach is first built on target company list, right? What are the types of places that you want to work at? Get clear on where you would actually want to go before you reach out to somebody. It gives you direction, right? It takes the whole wide world of all the places you could possibly work and narrows it down to certain companies, types of companies, right? Something you can latch onto. And then second, building a people list. So a places list and a people's list. Who could you talk to? What warm paths do you already have that exist, right? Most people are sitting a lot closer to opportunity than they even realize, right? Former coworkers, managers, clients, alumni, friends, loose ties, friends of friends. These matter, and the research shows that these matter a lot more than people ever think, right? So you've got your places list, your people list, and then you map those two together to become a very practical, strategic focus, right? This is where the search stops being random and you're like, hey, let me just find some friends, find some things to talk to. No. You have pulled this together to get a plan of attack on where you want to spend some energy, who you're talking to. Then once you've got that list figured out, all right, these are the people I'm going to start with. These are the people I'm going to talk to next. Then you got to figure out what you're actually going to talk to them about because every conversation's different. And this is where so many people totally freeze. Okay, I can pull together a list. That's great. That's safe work. I do that at my desk all by myself. And now I sit down to send the email or the DM or, the whatever message, the text, the phone call, and it's a little bit of a frozen plate. Salespeople tend to do really well here, right? Like they know how to go out there and talk in the world. It's what they do for a living. But a lot of the rest of us freeze and we make this so much harder than it really needs to be because we are trying to ask for something too big. We're trying to ask for the whole pizza when all we really are asking for is a slice of pepperoni, right? Usually, you're not asking for a job. You're asking for that insight or that orientation or a connection, right? The breadcrumbs that help you move there. And then fifth, send the warm outreach, right? Low pressure, very specific, very human, very real. Goal is not to sound impressive. The goal is to make it easy for someone to say yes to a conversation with you. And then six, how to run a really strong coffee chat, right? Like not just a vague, like, let's pick your brain conversation, but a real conversation that builds trust and creates movement in a specific direction. This is where so many people go wrong, is that they're like, okay, I finally got in the door and I'm having a conversation, and they have a really lovely conversation that leads them nowhere because they didn't think about how to frame what they wanted or how to lead a conversation in a way that actually brings better context, builds strong rapport, gets a clearer sense of like what your next step is, right? You got to think about everything leading it to something else. And then finally, right, of course, is just tracking, following up, building momentum, right? If you can get out there and figure out where you want to be, who you want to talk to, how that comes together, how to engage with them, how to get in the room to have a conversation, right? And again, like it's not figuring all that out at one time. It's just piecing it in this strategy of sort of moving it forward and then tracking it so you know where to follow up, what to do, how to loop forward. And that's what really builds you the momentum to move forward. It's not magic in one, amazing conversation. It's really how you keep the thread going and let momentum really compound. And that's what I wish more people really understood at the end of the day. The goal isn't to network more. The goal is to create a chain reaction of the right conversations that eventually lead you to your destination. And that is a very different thing. So when people really get this, the whole search starts to feel different. It doesn't feel like this impossible mountain of like, I have to apply to a million jobs. I have to go network into a million places and like, hopefully something works out because hope is not a strategy, my friends, right? Like, come on. It's the strategy is the strategy, right? The action plan is the strategy. The work that you do that moves you forward is what helps you, right? That's where things stop feeling so heavy. Things stop feeling so random and your search starts to feel a lot less like throwing yourself at the market and more like building traction inside of it. And that feels like relief. When you feel like I can see myself moving closer and closer, you don't have to show up in panic. You can show up in relief. And that's when you can really last as long as you need to in the job search because these are hard. They are emotional. The average time to a first offer is, close to 3 months. That's the average. That means there are a lot of people on the other side of that, right? And so you've got to know how you can move yourself methodically in that area. And just because somebody's been job searching for a while, or trying, hard without getting much movement, it doesn't mean that you need more. It doesn't mean you go try more. It means you find a way forward that is smarter. And so you need something you can actually do, a process you can actually trust, and a search that feels like it belongs to you again, right? This is that security and control that you want to feel in a market that feels very unstable and feels very much outside of your control. And that's a big part of the work that I try to do with people, and that, that really changes how things move forward for them. So less noise, less pressure, and just a clearer path forward, iterating until you get to where you need to with your job search. So hopefully this helped you, one, understand the market better, understand really what's going on, because I think a lot of what people think is going on is not really what's going on. And it helps you know how to show up in that market better. And if you feel like your search is, you're in the middle of it, it's heavy, just know that you're not behind because you're not trying hard enough. A lot of what you've been taught, a lot of what worked in the past just doesn't work in this market anymore. And that doesn't mean that the market's hopeless. It just means that you need a different approach. So if you know that you're ready for the structure, the momentum, you want the playbooks to walk you through this to land that next 100K plus role. I do have the next cohort, the April cohort of my Next Role Accelerator, kicking off next Friday, April 10th, and enrollment period is open right now until the 7th. So this is something that is for mid-career professionals who are ready to stop circling, stop over relying on screens and applications, and really run a smarter, more connection-based search with real support and all of the tools and playbooks and instructions on what to do, how to do it, templates, all that sort of good stuff, so that you're not guessing your way through anything. It's not for people who are looking for like quick fixes in certain areas, right? This is about really methodically implementing a strategy that does move you, right? It's the right kind of work that gets you where you want to go. And if you're not sure if, hey, you want to talk it out, you want to learn a little bit more, I do I do have appointments open for the next move assessment, 20 minutes. We can look at your situation, figure out what might be next for you, see if the Next Role Accelerator or something else, or maybe just you taking a lesson and going and doing it yourself, whatever works for you. Just figuring out what can help you figure out what's next move for you and your career, and getting you a little bit unstuck from where you're at and figure out what needs to shift to make that happen. So if you need that, feel free to book that. Links are in the notes here. I think I have it everywhere else on my Substack and on my LinkedIn profiles. So, either way, I hope that this really helped you make a little more sense of why the search feels the way that it does right now. And as always, I want you to put down the popcorn and get in the game.